I'll go ahead and start the recording. Peter is not here yet, I don't think, unless Zoom user is is Peter, and I don't think it is. But he may just be running a minute or so behind. I hate when things start late, and so I wanted to let everybody in, and and I can talk for a couple of minutes, but I know that I'm most interested in in talking with Peter and in um, giving you folks the opportunity to learn from him and to find out a little bit more about Scratch. So, a couple more people coming in. Yeah.
Hi, Chris. It's Meg.
Hi, Meg. How's it going? We're just waiting on Peter to show up. And once he does, hopefully we'll get going. Um, Here he comes. All right. I knew he'd be here. Peter.
Hey, how's it going, Chris? Apologies for
It,
being a couple minutes late.
that's okay. It built suspense. It built suspense. So we've got a few folks here, and there may be some more coming. I'm recording this, so we've got the opportunity to um, to chat with you and share that with other folks. First of all, thank you very much for being here. Um, and as I mentioned to folks through the message that I sent out, Peter is with Skratchlabs. Your what's your official job title, Peter, is sports marketing and events director. What exactly does that you get? That means you get to go out and have fun, right?
Means I get to go have a lot of fun and meet cool people like you at events.
There you
Uh,
go.
yeah, essentially what I've been tasked with is kind of building out Scratch's major event strategy and as well as a regional field marketing program.
Mhm.
When I started in 2021, probably the most events that Scratch had ever done was like 10 in a year. We are on pace for 500 this year, and I'm going to guess that's probably 700 next year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's crazy. How many of those do you actually go to personally?
I'm going to like 6 this year.
Good.
I've got a really good team that takes care of a lot. So yeah, I'm going to about 6. And then the sports marketing portion of that is working with pro athletes, organizations like USA Cycling, who we've done quite a bit with. We're in conversations with other parts of the Olympic program to work with their athletes as well. That can look at a lot of different ways. We send them products, so Scratch is on course at all their races, things like that, as well as at the Olympics in Paris last year. We did all the cooking for USA Cycling, and they had their most successful Olympics ever as far as medals. So I manage kind of all that.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, that's fantastic. Peter and I met at the Uray 100 a couple of years ago, right? It wasn't just last year. I think it was.
I think it was probably 3 years ago because
Yeah.
I have been there before when you were running, but you're not going to remember meeting me while you're running. So
That's fair. That's fair. And um uh and I do one of the moments I remember for sure was when we were up at an aid station that ran out of Scratch, and we had to hop on the Starlink of some crew person that was there, call my mother who was down in town, who went out over to the grocery store and bought all the Scratch they had at the grocery store to get it up to the aid station. So
I owe your mom a lot for that one, and we've made sure that's never happening again. She is a saint, and this year I sent him so much that Chris was like, "I have too much for the 50, so you don't even need to send me stuff next year."
wow, wow. So and I was, as I've shared with so many people that either in customized or with my one-on-one coaching, I've shared with a lot of people, and Peter, I shared with you, I had a disaster of a race at the San Diego 100. Just nothing worked for me nutrition wise. Some of it was probably the product wasn't a good match for me. Some of it was just bad decisions that I made, right? And that's not the first time that it's happened. I had a really bad Keys 100 where I tried basically a similar nutrition plan. I don't know why I thought it would work at San Diego if it didn't work at Keys. And I was basically just looking for something that would be different from what I've already been using, and that would hopefully give me an opportunity to be successful in keeping some calories in and having fuel for primarily for ultras. Although, uh, I that was I usually only do one, sometimes two ultras a year. And so what we talked about specifically was this product, which is the high carb, or the super high carb. Um, and I wonder, and I'm sure lots of people have lots of questions, but I just like to start off with this. So what makes this super high carb? First of all, what makes this different from the regular hydration mix, which, by the
Yeah,
way, this is delicious.
that's
Um,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, the watermelon is delicious. What makes it different from that? And then what makes it different from some of the other products that people would come across out there?
Yeah, great question. So we'll start with the hydration mix. That is our flagship product. It was the first thing that Alan made. He kind of created this on the World Tour of Cycling. And that basically it's mostly electrolytes. There are 19 grams of sugar in there, and it is simple sugar. And that is the reason there's some simple sugar in there is while you're exercising, it does help more water move from the gut to the body
Mhm,
with a little bit of sugar. You don't want a lot, you want a little bit
mhm,
while you're exercising. And so that's just really simple sugar and electrolytes. Now, if you look at the high carb, that is probably the most complex carb that I've ever heard of or that you can find. You will
mhm,
find a lot of talk about complex carbohydrates, and that's because simple sugar, when you're getting lots and lots of it, will tend to give you gut rot over time. That's probably what you experienced at the San Diego 100 and Keys probably as well. Um, and so you don't want to take in tons and tons of simple sugar. And so there's a lot of so-called complex carbohydrates that people are starting to experiment with and use. This one has a fascinating history out of Japan that I won't tell the whole story of, but it's been quite interesting. It was actually a guy whose son had Crohn's disease, I think in the 1920s or something, and he started a lab to figure out what his son could take in because he was like, when I boil mussels, he can keep that down. Fast forward, we're now using the substance that his lab, I think, figured out in the 1980s or something. We're using that for complex carbohydrates for the rest of us as we try to do these crazy races.
That's nuts. That is nuts.
Yeah.
Um,
And so the main there's kind of two big ones that you're going to hear a lot about right now is maltodextrin. And maltodextrin is used in most high carb products.
mhm.
The way it's been described to me, I'm not a scientist. We'll give you info so you could meet with one of our dietitians in the future. Any of you, I know Chris has been working with Taylor a bit,
Yeah.
and they know a lot more than I do. And we'll get Taylor on one of these calls as well. But uh, essentially, it's been described to me that maltodextrin is like a train. And so it's a complex carb, but it's like a train. And as we all know, a train can break apart at any point on the train, right? There's all these different cars that break apart. And so when you actually put maltodextrin in your mouth, it starts to break down. And by the time it hits your stomach, it is mostly simple sugar. So you've actually basically gotten exactly what we're trying to avoid a little bit of. This stuff is called cluster dextrin. It's a really, really complex carb. And it will, and this sounds weird because you think it's going to like hit your stomach in a thud, but it hits your stomach intact and slowly breaks apart to fuel you over time. So you're not going to get the glucose spikes normally. You know, we're all different, but most of us don't get the glucose spikes. We've kind of watched diabetics use this and been like, okay, you're sitting here. Let's watch what your blood sugar does.
Yeah.
Uh, and we've kind of watched that and seen, okay, you don't seem to get as high of glucose spikes. You're not getting the gastric distress that otherwise most people can get. And again, everybody's different. So, you know, you might line up 100 diabetics and 70 of them are one way and 30 are another, and I'm one way and you're another. And, you know, all that's true. So I can't speak to individuals. And again, our dietitians can dive into that a lot more. But that's how it's been explained to me. And I cannot tell you how many people's races I've saved with the high carb. I take it to Uray. I have bags at every single aid station. It's the hardest race imaginable for a 100 miler. And when I
Yeah.
see people puking, I'm like, hey, I could probably fix your race. It's probably going to involve some salt and then some more complex carbohydrates.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. I'm reading the little blurb on the package. Our super high carb sports drink mix is liquid fuel for your biggest days when you can't prepare, carry, or chew real food. And that's kind of, oh, and I'm thinking add keep down as part of that, right? And I mean, you told me about a person that came in, which, typically you wouldn't want people trying something they'd never tried before, but somebody who came in, I don't think it was at Uray, but it was at one of the races and was gonna drop, like had a bad stomach, nothing was going down, was gonna drop. And so why not try something new, right?
Yeah. 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 The number of stories that I've had that exact thing happen has
Yeah.
been pretty mind blowing. One woman came up to me at the Rut, which I just got back from in Big Sky, Montana, and it's such a crazy 50K. I think there's like 11,000 feet of vert in a 50K.
Wow.
Um, and she came up to me before the race, and she was like, "My husband throws up every single race, and he's using X product." I was like, "Well, here's a bag. Give it to him. Let him try this stuff out." Funnily enough, the next day she comes down. She's like, I couldn't keep anything down, so I opened my husband's bag and ordered one on the mountain. So he wouldn't know that I used the bag you gave me. But actually, the next summer in Uray, I get a giant hug from behind at 2 a.m. And it's that woman and her husband, and he's like, "Dude, you've saved my racing. I haven't puked since. I would puke at 70 miles every single time."
Yeah.
And that's not me doing anything special. That's me getting to hand out stuff that really works. But that's been my experience time and time again.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because that's what I need, right? This is what I need. And so now most of the people that are on here that are joining us today, most of them are not doing ultras, although a few are. And so that's going to be hopefully really of interest specifically to them. But even for people that are training for marathons or half marathons, some of them are going to be out there for a long time. So I took the super high carb, and this I shared with you a few weeks ago. For I think the first run that I did, I mixed a lot of it, right? Because it says to use up to it says 4 to 7 scoops. So I put 7 scoops of this thing into a regular water bottle, like not a big old massive thing, into a sports water bottle. I was going to care. I put 7 scoops of it, which, by the way, 7 scoops is 400 calories. And I went for a 2 hour run, and it was hot. It was in the 80s. And by the end of the first hour, I had drained that bottle and felt fine. I didn't feel My stomach didn't feel full. I didn't feel bad. No sense of nausea at all. It is a lemon lime flavor, but it's not, I mean, even at 7 scoops, it's not overwhelming. Um, it worked fine. That was the first time that I used it. Now you told me probably in that kind of heat, 7 scoops might have been a little bit much for that kind of heat. Um,
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things, like, we're so variable. You might have the stomach to handle that at 7 scoops. And this stuff is so flexible. I always tell everybody start with 4 and work your way up. But we have athletes that in a 500 ml bottle, they put 24 scoops of that stuff and some extra electrolytes because they're like, I'm basically making a gel and I want to be able to go for 4 hours straight without having to bring another bottle. I'll have one of water and one of high carb. Or for a marathon, that'd be a perfect example as well, where people just make it really highly concentrated. It does get stronger and thicker that the more you put in there, and 24 is insane to me, but we have people that do that regularly. And so
wow.
I think
Wow.
finding what your body can handle is such a good experiment. I'm glad you were able to start with that, and you can play around with it more.
Yeah, and so I did that, and then I've been traveling a lot lately. So I went a couple weekends ago. I was down in Sydney, Australia. I was pacing the Sydney Marathon, and so I took the bag with me. I did, since it was going to be a full marathon, I went ahead and I did 7 scoops in a bottle. It was my only nutrition for the entire marathon. I actually drained the bottle at about 14 miles. I had drained the bottle, and then I just went to water only at that point. The next weekend, I was in Anaheim pacing the half marathon at Disneyland. I did 4 scoops for that. But I also threw in, and this is exciting. I also threw this in. Um, and this electrolyte booster. Tell everybody about this stuff, because this I didn't know about this until you told me about it, and I'm thrilled to have it.
Yeah, so you were the first person I ever sent that to. That's brand new.
Thank you.
Um, and one of the things you'll see across our line of whether it's high carb, whether it's that booster, whether it's our sport drink mixes, our unsweetened sport drink mix, all of them have the same carbohydrate mix as far as sodium. There are some differences in potassium, things like that. And the reason for that is that that is the same amount of sodium that the average person sweats out. Um, there are people, you see companies that have, 1,000 milligrams of sodium. And I have people on my team that they need that, but most of us don't.
Yeah.
And so 400 milligrams per liter is what the average person sweats out. What we've found is when you're a really salty sweater, I'm pretty average. So I can use 1 or 2 scoops of our sport drink mix and there's no issues with that. If you're like Logan, who's on my team, that dude sweats like crazy. He's like 2,200 milligrams per liter.
Wow.
So like 2.5 times the average, which is
Jeez.
about 860 or something like that. But he doesn't want to do 6 scoops of sport drink mix because you're getting a lot of simple sugar in that, right? Now you're looking at, at 6, you're looking at 80 grams of simple sugar, and that can mess up your stomach over time. If he's going an hour or two, right, that's fine.
Yeah.
So what we created the booster for is it can be a standalone. It tastes kind of minerally. If you're good at that, that's great. Um, so if you are cool, but for most of us are going to be going longer than an hour. I know I can't run a marathon in an hour. Chris might be able to, but I sure as hell can't. Um, and so we want to be able to supplement that sodium without compromising taste, and without getting that simple sugar. And so that booster, we're now talking about this as a hydration system. And so it's really flexible. And so, with the high carb, I'm getting that 400 milligrams of sodium if I'm using 7 scoops. But if it's a really hot day and I want more than that, or I'm at it, I'm going 14 scoops, which is what I usually do because I'm going to go out for 3-4 hours, and then I want to have enough fuel in one bottle. Um, I can supplement it with the booster to get the added sodium without any added flavor.
Yeah.
I know I get so sick of fruity and sweet stuff after about 2 hours. I love it up to about 2 hours. After that, I'm just like, I never want to taste fruit again in my life. Um, and so this allows you to supplement that without giving the stronger flavor.
Yeah. And that's what I did. So for Disneyland, I did the 4 scoops of the super high carb, and then just one scoop of this electrolyte booster. And actually, even when I was walking around, because it was hot, it was really hot in Southern California. So just when I was walking around Disneyland, I would just in my water bottle, I would just put 1 scoop of this stuff. And that's 400 milligrams of sodium. And this is a teeny tiny scoop. It's crazy to me that this teeny tiny scoop is all that's necessary for that much. Meg has asked in the chat, can you explain the difference between sodium citrate, which is what this has, and
Yep.
sodium chloride?
I am going to allow Taylor to talk more in depth about that at a future time because she is the scientist and actually can dive into that. So Meg, I'm sorry I can't dive too much into that. What I've been told is that it's easier on your stomach, and that is Scratch's philosophy overall is do no harm. And that goes as far as, we really try not to make anything that's going to hurt anyone, but also we don't want to make anything that's going to impact your stomach negatively when you're out there. So yeah, I'll let Taylor speak more to that
Yeah.
scientific background, but that's the best I can do.
That's cool. And I look forward to having her on sometime. I did, so there I used the I did the just the electrolyte booster in my regular water, which did not make it taste salty at all.
Yeah.
Doesn't taste like salt water, just tastes like regular water. And then I did that. Last weekend I ran another marathon. So I've had 3 races the last 3 weekends. Last weekend I did another marathon. And so again, I did the 7 scoops of the high carb, and I did a scoop of the booster. All of the running that I've done has been using this product. Today, I had to take my car into the shop. Again, my Jeep's got something going on with it. And so it's about 7.5 miles from the Jeep place to home. It was about, it's 81 degrees now. I got back about an hour ago. So it was mid 80s. And I did that run. I played around because when I talked to Taylor, one of the things that I learned is that not only can I add some of this electrolyte booster to the super high carb, but I can mix in some of this regular stuff too. And
Yeah.
so I kind of got a little bit, Dr. Frankenstein and mixed some things. So I did, I think, 3 scoops of the super high carb, and then I did a scoop of the the flavor that nobody else can get. Um, but that I liked. I did a scoop of that, and then I did a scoop of this, and it tasted fine. There was
Yeah.
it was not too heavy a flavor, not too thick a drink. There's another tip though that you gave me, which really really helped in terms of thinning out the product.
Was that mixed it the night before?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So the high carb, that's one of the things I do need to call out up front is it's not super easy to mix, and that is because it's such a complex carb, and so you pay a little bit up front to have a better experience on the back end. And so for mixing instructions, I always say fill up a bottle. I use HydroPack, flasks. Fill that up about halfway with lukewarm water. Put the scoops in, shake it like crazy, and then you can put the rest in. And that should be fine for, 15 minutes later, you're going out to run. If you want it to thin out, you do it the night before. And so when I'm running, I'm not running 100 miles like you, Ray, but I've run a few shorter ultras. And if you mix that the night before, you have all your bottles set, and this is what we do for our pros as well, is we mix all their bottles the night before. We go out, we crew them, we have them in coolers, they're ready to go. I actually obviously don't have a brand out sponsoring me and handing me bottles as I run through aid stations, but I can have my family out there and say, okay, here's a cooler, you do all of that. And so that really thins it out quite a bit and makes it easier to take in over time, has been my experience.
Yeah, yeah. And that it did. It worked like a charm. I mean, it really it thinned out just fine. In fact, even I noticed the at the race this past weekend, the marathon this past weekend, I was staying in an Airbnb with a bunch of other folks, and I was nervous that I might, if I put the bottle in the fridge, that I might forget it. So I went ahead and I mixed this stuff up the night before. It was a little bit clumpy. Mixed it up the night before. I just left it on my bedside stand. Got up in the morning. It was perfectly clear. It was
Yeah.
fine. There were no
Yeah.
issues with it at all. So it was fantastic. So as I told you, and it's absolutely true. For right now, I'm all in on using these products because I need a solution. I need something that when I go out into my next ultra, I don't want my stomach to be my weak link, right? Um, and because that's no fun. It's no fun at all. And so I'm really excited about using this. Now, we've got a couple of questions and I want to see if anybody else does. But before we talk about those, there are some other products besides these powders and things that Scratch, because I see ads for them all the time online. So what are some of these other products and how are those used typically?
Yeah, great question. So we've got the hydration system, and as you named, they're all interchangeable, right? You know, we have the unsweetened for days I might be in the sauna and I need electrolytes, but I don't want simple sugar. So, and I can mix booster with that. I can take the normal sport drink mix, which is the watermelon, which is what you were showing us, and I can mix the unsweetened with that. I can mix the booster with that. I can mix any of the three of those with the high carb. And so it's really about finding what solutions work best for you and the activity you're doing. And I think that's the really cool thing is it takes a little bit more education because we have to do some me search, right? What works for me? But I also think that's the gift of what we're doing is that we're learning about ourselves as we're not doing these crazy hard things. And so, you know, your training then gets to be a part of that as well. On top of that, we have chews, we have bars, we have recovery. Uh, you know, I see a question on there about the chews, and I won't. I'll hold off, and we can read that out loud and talk about it. But
Yeah.
I use the chews, you know, mostly for under 2.5 hours. They are more simple sugar. They're all made with real fruit, no waxes, no dyes. You're not going to find any weird things in our chews or any of our products. But our chews in particular, they're a little bit stickier. I'm going to guess when you're in Florida, they stick together a little bit more than the others, and that's because we don't put wax on them.
Uh-huh.
And the reason for that is that wax over time can negatively impact your stomach. And so we say you're not sweating out wax, you're not burning wax as you're running. So why would we put it in our chews? Um, we have bars as well. You know, my kind of not funny joke about these is that they're the bars that I would make at home if I wasn't too lazy to make bars. And so they're all made with real food, and you know they're pretty simple to use. I personally don't like using bars when I'm running. I use them on hiking or after. We have our recovery mix, which is a 4-to-1 carb to protein ratio, essentially chocolate milk, but with probiotics, electrolytes, things like that. And so you're getting both the carbohydrates to refuel glycogen stores as you know, because you're burning carbohydrates out of your muscles. You're getting the protein to rebuild those muscles, and then you're getting the electrolytes to refuel. I was pretty skeptical about using recovery mixes. I was like, I eat meals and whatever. I feel so much better when I do. And so, again, that goes into the me search. Test it for yourself. If you don't eat it, cool. Don't do it. Like eat a chicken and rice dinner when you get home, you know, whatever. But for me, I found I feel better when I do, and so that's what I do. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the full range. Most of the other things yeah, I'm trying to think what else, what other products we have. I think that's all of them.
Yeah.
It's all designed for athletes. That's the main
There you
thing.
go. And I think you're right that, you know, if your recovery, if you feel like your recovery is dialed in, great. You
Yeah.
know, just like if you feel like your hydration is dialed in or your fueling is dialed in. I mean, chances are if all that stuff's dialed in, you're not on here now and you're not watching this. Um, and I'm jealous, and I'm frankly jealous of people that do have it dialed in. And you know, I was reading for example, the woman who won Leadville, I mean, basically, you know, surprised everyone, probably
Yeah.
including herself, right? And one of the things that she really credited with being able to do so well is that she took in so many more calories than she normally had done. And that was what the light bulb that I had with using this super high carb was I took in 400 calories in an hour on a 2 hour run on a hot day. I have never had 400 calories in an hour on a run.
Yeah.
No, just never happens. Uh,
Yeah. It's crazy the numbers you're seeing now. I mean, at Western States, we saw a lot of this where some of these guys are taking in 140 to 160 grams of carbs, I think, which is insane because that it is so hot.
Yeah.
And I can't do that. I don't pretend to be Adam Peterman or Jeff McGavero or Killian by any means. But
Mhm.
I find like 70 to 90 was a lot more than I was doing, and I feel a lot better when I'm out running doing that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think part of the me search, as you're saying, is figuring out how many scoops are going to work for me per hour or per bottle per event, to get the right amount of calories, the right amount of carbs, the right amount of electrolytes in order to try to dial in. And hopefully the hard thing is it's really hard to do that in an ultra because you're never under full ultra conditions. At least when we're training for a marathon, the way all these folks are doing it, they're out there longer in a marathon training run than they will be in the marathon itself.
Yeah.
So there really is that opportunity to try all of that stuff out.
Yeah.
Um, the other part of all of this, and this is something I didn't know about until I talked with you, and you've mentioned Taylor a couple of times, is there's the opportunity to work with a nutritionist, to have a free appointment with a nutritionist online and talk through some of this stuff and try to get some assistance in dialing all this in. How long have you guys been offering that?
Yeah, it's one of the coolest things that we do. I think I feel really lucky to be at Scratch because there is so much budget to put towards just helping athletes. I mean, which
Wow.
I think is incredible. And so I feel really lucky to get to be a part of that. We've had full-time sports dietitians for, let's see, Colette started in March of 2021. She built out the program, and we now have two, Taylor and Hillary. They're both dialed. Hillary worked at the Olympic Center in Colorado Springs for a long Olympic training center for a very long time. Taylor's done tons of work in cycling, and so it's a pretty incredible thing. I'll just throw in if you want to work with them. I'm just going to throw the email address in there. You can email info@skratchlabs.com to say, hey, I'm getting ready for a race. I'm struggling with fueling. I'd love to have a chance to talk with the dietitian and get some help on this, and they'll find some time. I will tell you that they are backed up because we have a lot of these meetings. I think Colette, who was the previous dietitian, told me at one point she was like, I have about 1,000 athletes I'm working with right now, and I was like, how do you have time to work with 1,000 athletes? Um, but they are incredible to work with. And I think it's one of the best resources out there for really dialing in fueling. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And so what I did is, after I had used the product for a couple of runs, including my experience in Sydney, I then had the chance to chat. Actually, I think now that I think about it, I had been Sydney um, and Disneyland. So
Mhm.
it was after those two events, but before the marathon this past weekend. That was when I talked with her. And I'm glad that I had had some experience with the product first so that I could kind of let her know. Well, I liked everything. There hasn't been a negative experience with it, but I kind of let her know how I'd been using it
Yeah.
and what other products I'd tried, what I thought was okay, what I thought wasn't okay. And she really helped me sort of understand some of the things that worked with that I think are working with my body. So I feel like I've got a little bit more guidance on how I'm going to be using this stuff going forward, and I'm thrilled about that. I really am. So yeah, that's a great service. Um, there are some questions here, so I'll just kind of go backwards and Wang was asking, do you drink water in between? Um, that was Wang for me in my when I was using the product in the marathons. In both cases, the way I did it was I had the 7 scoops of the super high carb. That was my only fuel until I ran out of it. I did not take any additional water. I used that until I ran out of it, and then I switched to just to water. But that's probably not the way as a coach, that's not what I would have recommended anybody else do. It's just what I did. Peter, is there a best practice for how people should? You talk about maybe what I should have done is put even more scoops in, but then taken water in addition to it.
That's what I would assume Taylor would be for. I know I can say what I do, and my dentist is the number one advocate of this because he's like, man, sports drinks are so hard on your teeth. He's like, every time you take a drink of a sports drink, whether it's high carb or even a sugar free, that the acidity is really tough on your teeth. So he's like, swig with some water. So he told me that. I tend to do that. I'm spoiled. I'm here in Colorado. I have a lot of streams in the mountains. And so I tend to do one bottle of high carb, and I'll do that, probably up to 20, depending on how long I'm going. And then I do a bottle with a filter. And so I always have water as well. I find for palate fatigue, which is actually a scientific phenomenon, not just something that I'm like, I'm tired of this, but it's actually a scientific phenomenon. For palate fatigue, I can extend it before I get into that point if I do have water with me. And then I think for hydrating, you do want to make sure that you're getting the right amount of liquid with your electrolytes as well.
Yeah. That palate fatigue is a absolutely real thing.
Yeah.
And there have been other sports drinks that I liked, that I believed in it, in terms of their effectiveness for me as a runner, but I couldn't stand them after a while.
Yeah.
Um, and I think more products, hopefully, it looks to me like more companies are now offering unflavored versions of their
Mhm.
drinks. But even those, there's something
Yeah.
unflavored isn't the same as unflavored.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much. It's
Yeah.
well, and I would bet every single one of them has some form of a citric acid or something in them to cover up the sodium, and so you're always getting that hint of a citrus flavor, and which is fine for 2 hours. And when you're going for I don't know your hard rock times, Chris, but when you're going for that long, you get tired of anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my best hard rock was 35 hours.
Yeah,
That's a long time.
yeah,
My slowest is 46. So
yeah. I,
um
I keep saying we need to make like a miso or ramen flavored hydration mix, but that so far that's only been a joke that we've done on April Fools. So I like for the ultra runners, they'll love it.
I mean, yeah, I would something savory though. I think you're right. I think
Yeah.
for at night,
Oh,
yeah,
at
that'd be
night when it's cold and you're tired of fruit, it'd be a game changer.
would be a game changer. It really would. It really would. Um, so then Sierra asks, do you have any data or customers who are on semaglutides that slow your digestion, or any recommendation on which would be better, regular or high carb?
Yeah, I don't know enough to know what I don't know, Sierra. So I'm gonna say I'm sorry, but I would highly suggest reaching out to info@skratchlabs.com, and Taylor or Hillary would have an answer for that. I'd guarantee. If they don't, they will go find it and consult with somebody. I don't want to give you an incorrect answer, so I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, yeah. Is the high carb or regular meant to be used alone, or can it be used with the chews as well if you balance the total carbs and electrolytes?
Yeah, that's a great question. I use them both together quite often. And yeah, they can go very well. You want to be aware of like, hey, this is a simple sugar versus a complex carb. So you don't want to probably use 3 bags of chews during, in an hour during a run or something, and be conscious of how many total carbs you're taking in. But I absolutely mix them quite often. And our sour cherry chews have caffeine, and that's the thing I'm often going for is that you can get a half a cup of coffee worth of caffeine in one bag. And so I don't do a lot of caffeine in general, but when I'm out going, I notice at altitude, if I'm going up to 12 to 14,000 feet, the caffeine really helps. So I bring those chews in quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, at 2 o'clock in the morning, when you've been going since 6 or 7 o'clock the previous day, it's you want that caffeine, and to have it in
Yeah,
the chew is a lot more convenient than to have to wait until you get into an aid station and hope that they have coffee and hope that it's not too hot and hope that you can keep it down. Uh,
yeah, totally.
so having and that's and I think I like that idea better than popping a caffeine pill or something.
Yeah.
Is a high carb drink designed to drink up front and used over time, um, or run on, or can you slowly drink as you go through the marathon? I think we talked about that, right? The probably best to meter it out throughout the marathon instead of.
So I would consult again Taylor Hillary on this. What I am finding with our pros, we're doing this a lot, is 5 minutes before the start, we'll have them chug an amount of high carb, and then have it on bottles going throughout. We do that with our pro cyclists. They're not bouncing around generally as much.
Uh-huh.
On the bike as we are running. But yeah, we do find that we can really preload a little bit, and that can be helpful. And then have that fuel you for the first several hours, and then you really keep that going over time. Again, I would defer to Taylor and Hillary on how much that is, and that's probably also an individual thing that they can help you dial in.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's the sort of thing that if you're going to be, maybe you're running the Walt Disney World Marathon and you've got to be out there in the parking lot at 3:30 in the morning and the race starts at 5, if you're sipping on that high carb, that's probably a good way to get the fuel that you're going to need for those first few miles of the marathon. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, and what a great example. We have, with I've done this a lot more with cyclists and runners, but we're finding this with our pros is Alan will have them get up at 2 a.m., chug a bottle of high carb, go back to sleep, and then have another one at the start line. And again, you can dial that in with our professionals that know a lot more than I do, but that's one of the things we're seeing with our pros as we go through the season.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea a lot. And again, the flavors are not too strong. The mixing and matching, I think, is really cool. I'm standing here in my bar where I mix up cocktails all the time, and so the idea of mixing some lemon lime and some watermelon or some guava, if you can find it, mixing that in, it makes a really nice thing. Also, here's a really good tip for people that do have a home bar. Cocktail shakers are the best way to shake up drink powder.
Yeah.
It absolutely shakes up better in a cocktail shaker than it will be in some plastic bottle, even if you've got one of those little agitators in there. So
100%. And especially if you're going to go really strong on the high carb, if you're doing like anything over 10 scoops, I would absolutely do it in a drink mixer or an Nalgene or something before pouring it into your 500 ml flask or if you're using a reservoir.
yeah. Well, I'm thrilled to know that you can get that many scoops in. Because even like, for example, at Hard Rock, even if I have my crew with fresh bottles at every crew aid station, and even if I've got bags for me to do it myself at every non-crewed aid station that I can get to, you're still talking about hours in between aid stations. And
Yeah.
so to be able to really concentrate those bottles way beyond, I mean, I was excited about 7 because there's 400 calories in that, but you're talking about triple that. So to be able to get over 1,000 calories into a bottle and be carrying that with me that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Obviously test it all out, but I did 8 hours climbing a peak 2 weeks ago. I took two bottles with I think I had 14 scoops in each.
Yeah.
And I had that and one bag of chews, and that was all I needed for 8 hours.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's the other thing that's worth saying. You know, I can run, I have run and can run a marathon with no fuel. I don't recommend it to anybody, but I've done that. So it's not that this allows you to have just enough to get by. And there are some gels out there that I've used that I feel like they were just enough for me to get by.
Hmm.
That's not what it feels like with this. When I'm using the super high carb, I feel fueled. I feel fine. I mean, maybe my legs get tired. Certainly my legs get tired. And I'm not saying this makes me run faster. It's not a performance enhancer in that way, but I feel fueled, which is frankly a new experience for me. I don't usually feel fueled in my runs. My marathons and certainly my ultras are always this on the edge of not having the fuel to keep going.
Yeah. It's one of those things I think about that these things are so damn hard already.
Mhm.
Uh, and you see people that are like, I do 0 calories during these things. And I'm like, that's insane. Like running 100 miles or a marathon is hard enough. You don't have to make yourself suffer more than you're already going to. Like you said, your legs are still going to hurt. You're running 26.2 miles or you're running 100 miles or anywhere in between. So it doesn't have to be harder than it's already going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So I really appreciate that. I really do appreciate that all the products from Scratch that I've had, none of them have I had a problem with. But I really appreciate that the super high carb is something different. And that and this electrolyte booster is fantastic too. Just to be able to toss that in wherever. I mean, frankly, like I said, when I was at the expo or walking around Disneyland, in really hot Southern California. It was nice to have that. Living in Florida, I'm going to be going through this stuff. So this is fantastic. Does anybody that's here have any other questions for Peter while we've got him here, or for me for that matter, about any of the stuff that we've been talking about regarding Scratch?
Susan, I'll add my vote. I thought I was going to be a raspberry guy, and I'm very much a lemon lime guy as far as the high carb. I went really hard on raspberry, and I think the first time I think it was before I worked at Scratch, I bought like 3 bags, and I was like, because I love raspberries more than I like lemon lime. I don't like tons and tons of citrus flavors. I use the lemon lime exclusively, so take that for what you will. As always, do your own trials and see what works for you.
There you go. I'm liking the lemon lime myself for sure.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
I'm
I'm
gonna throw a code in here as well. And I need to go find the link, and I'll send you all a link. But this will be a code. You can get a free sample pack. It doesn't cover shipping, so I'm sorry about that. But you can get a free sample pack. It's got a single of high carb, single of our unsweetened sport drink mix, our regular sport drink mix, and then I think it's a bag of chews or something like that.
Well, I appreciate that's not why I asked you to come on. I wasn't looking for freebies for people, but I appreciate it.
Happy to
That's
give freebies.
yeah. Um, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, Chrissy, if you message, I promise they'll get back to you. As Peter said, they're busy as heck, but they're also in the business of helping folks. So yeah, for sure. Any other questions from folks that are here? I'm thrilled. I'll continue to share with everybody the journey that I'm on with this. But I've got a lot more races coming up. I don't know about my 100 miler yet. I will obviously be doing another 100 miler. The Hard Rock Lottery is in December, so I'm not signing up for anything else until I hear about Hard Rock, and then either it'll be Hard Rock next summer or it'll be something else. But my son, you met Brendan. He was up there volunteering with me. I think
Yeah.
he's going to sign up for oh shoot, what is the race called? The one in Idaho, Scout. Um, is it Scout Mountain or Scout?
Yeah.
Uh, I think he's going to be signing up for, yeah, Scout Mountain 100, because that's one of the new Hard Rock qualifiers. So,
Okay.
um, so I'll be getting him, making sure that he is a tough one with nutrition. I will say he's the guy who has a hard time keeping anything down during a 5K.
Okay. Wow.
So, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely be trying to get his nutrition dialed in because I don't want him to DNF his first attempt at a 100 miler. Uh,
Yeah.
so
I'm hearing you both are going to be at Uray if you don't get into Hard Rock. So
well, I'll be at your Ray. There's no question about that. I do
just
wish
depends in what capacity.
it's just what capacity. I do wish that the Uray 50 were still on the same
Me
weekend
too.
as the Uray 100, because that 50 is a really cool event. And I think I would love to do that. I'd do the Uray 100 again. I would do
Yeah.
the Uray 100 again. It is hard. It's more vertical than Hard Rock has.
Yeah.
To date, it is the longest amount of time I've spent during a race. It was over 48 hours for me. Uh,
Yeah. I can't even imagine. I had one of my team say that they're not runner. They said, I'll run the route 50K if you run your Ray. And I'm like, not a fair trade here, bud.
Not a fair trade. Right. Not a fair trade at all. But we will be there no matter what.
Awesome.
I would run it again. My family loved crewing me there way more. It's way easier to crew for your
Yeah,
race.
you're not racing all around.
Exactly. You go up and they skip. They didn't do where you and I were at first up at uh Richmond. Was that Richmond aid station? They didn't go up there. They skipped that.
Yeah.
They just went straight over to Ironton.
Yeah.
And the runners come through there 3 times at Ironton, so they loved that. And then it went back down to Uray, and you go through Uray 3 times. So yeah, it's ridiculously easy from a crewing standpoint.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
uh,
And the advantage is there's scratch on course.
there's Scratch on course, and we're out there. I'm looking at bringing. I've got 4 field marketing managers under me. They manage the East Coast, California, Pacific Northwest, and then the Mountain Region. I'm looking at bringing them out. So instead of just me, we might have 5 or 6 of us out there,
Oh wow.
helping runners all the time. I almost every year pay somebody that's struggling, and so it'll be a lot of fun to get them out there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I know I'll see you out there, and I'm sure we'll talk plenty between now and
Okay.
then. But thank you very much for coming on here
Yeah.
and talking with us. Folks, you see that code and that link. I'll grab those and email them to you as well, so that if anybody didn't grab it, or if there are people that are watching this later and they're not seeing the chat, they'll see that. And again, Peter, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me on, Chris. And anytime, people have questions, obviously for scientific stuff, send them towards Taylor and Hillary and info at Skratchlabs. But if there's other questions, feel free to put people in touch with me. Always happy to answer, whatever comes up. I'm putting one more link in here. Uh, yeah, this is so much fun for me getting to help people do really hard things. I think this is where we grow as people and really learn about ourselves. So that last link I threw in is a film that we've made. I don't know if any of you know the name Adam Peterman, but he's a pretty freaking good ultra runner that won Hard Rock in 2022, was Ultra Runner of the Year. And we went out to crew him at Western States this year. And he had very high aspirations. And at mile 55, the wheels came off. And he could have stopped then because he wasn't going to win. And he hiked it in another 45 miles. And we made a film about him, as well as another athlete of ours who's a mid to backpacker, Alice Held, and really just telling the story of how it's really cool to see pros do crazy fast hard things, but even cooler is when they're having the same experience that we do. I mean, this was his worst race ever, and it was 23:09, and I'm like, most of us would kill to finish Hard Rock in 23:09.
Yeah.
Not Hard Rock, sorry, Western States.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, yes, you're right. Um, Even Killian would kill to do it in 2309. I there's a there's a I'll tell you offline sometime who I'm talking about there, but there's a fast ultra runner who one year at Hard Rock was having a bad time, and he had finished, I think the previous year he'd finished about 7 hours ahead of me or something, and I'd had a good year. And he and I found ourselves in an aid station together. It was pouring rain, bad storm. We were in a tent, side by side in sleeping bags as our crew was taking care of us. And then my wife was pacing me out of there, and she basically said, you got to get your butt out. And so we went off in the storm. But before that, as I'm having a conversation with this other runner, I said, look, it validates what I'm not winning a 100 miler, right? But when someone who has won a 100 miler and is having a bad day is able to humble himself and struggle through to the finish and finish around the times that I do, it validates what I do, right? Um, and I really, it was really encouraging him to leave. I really wish he'd left. And hey, I DNF'd a 100 miler. I timed out at an aid station. Other people have timed out or have been injured and can't continue. So I'm not saying he should have continued through an injury or blown off the race and ignored the regulations and gone through after he timed out. This is just giving up, right?
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
encouraging him not to do that. And he didn't.
Yeah.
So I love that you highlight someone who did, who
Yeah.
said, I'm having a bad day. And there were other examples of that. I was listening to a podcast today with Meb, right? And Meb very famously had a really bad New York City marathon. After he had won it, went back and had a really bad one. He still finished it, finished
Yeah.
with the the sub elite, but he still got it done. And that's, that shows that they really are sharing the course with the rest of us, and we're not just all out there as fans, but as co-participants in the sport.
So well said. I think it takes a lot of humility to be able to do it, and a lot of mental strength to make that shift from I'm going to win this damn thing to I just hope I can finish. And there Adam was the one story we could tell, but there were a few others. Adrian McDonald, who's run Leadville, I believe, twice. He had a really rough Western States, and he was out there. He walked through. He was like an hour ahead of Adam. And one of the things he said after he kept asking people, "Is Adam still out here?" And they're like, "Yeah, he's still going." He said, "Okay, if he can do it, I can do it." And Shay Aquilano, she's a field marketer for us. She won the Gorge and is representing us at Worlds along with Adam. She trudged it out. And I think it says a lot about them as people, and it does validate what the rest of us do, and that hey, this isn't valuable just for winning a medal or getting a race or our egos or whatever, but there's something really intrinsically important about this stuff. And you'll see we have some really funny merch on there that we made with this great trail running marketer Matt Trappy. We call it our. I'm going to pull it up so I don't get it wrong, but you should follow his newsletter, by the way. He's phenomenal. But it is, I got to pull it up because I'm totally going to botch it. Where's Trappy? Where is he? It's the Society for Intrinsic Exploration. And he said that is the longest way I could describe hiking out an ultra.
Yep.
um,
Yep.
and so, this may be a theme that you see on more Scratch stuff in the future, but I think it's really what we're all doing out there is we're part of that society, and Adam's a part of that society, and Adrian is. Emily Haga, who at UTMB 38 hours, and I believe she's won UTMB before, I mean, incredible. For her to hike that in is incredible.
Yeah.
And so it's so cool to see these professional athletes. I'm never going to be on a basketball floor trying to play ball with LeBron, but I could be out on those trails with someone like that, and they have the humility and strength to stay with me.
Yeah. No kidding. Although I will say this is ridiculous, but absolutely true. On my last flight, I was sitting next to Kwame Brown.
No way.
So yeah, so 7 foot tall dude, and we were talking about running. So
That's awesome. How big are his hands? Because that guy could not catch the ball the same as
I
mine.
know. Yeah, that's a claim against him. He didn't have big hands. His hands are bigger than mine, but I can't palm a ball either. So. All right, Peter, I'm going to let you go and let everybody else go. I grabbed the links. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. We'll get on Taylor's schedule to get her on here to answer some more of the nutritionist type questions. But folks, if you're interested in trying it out, thank you again, Peter, for providing that link. I did not ask you to do that, but I appreciate that you did. And is the best place if people want to pick up volumes of this stuff, is the best place just to buy it off your website? Or I know I've seen it they can go to the to the grocery store in Ouray, Colorado. I know they still sell it there.
Your mom might have bought him out.
Might have.
Scratchlabs.com is a great place. Our orders ship out same day. If it comes in before 4 p.m., it ships out same day, which is pretty impressive. You get free stickers with it, things like that. You'll get handwritten notes from our warehouse team, sometimes from Alan, our founder, Ian, our CEO. So that's a great place, and you'll find things that you won't get anywhere else. But REI is a great partner for us. Almost every run and bike shop carries us. If you're in certain regions, Whole Foods, Amazon, the feed. So you've got a lot of options that to find us in places that match your buying habits.
There you go.
I would plug Skratchlabs.com as my favorite because Joy does such a good job building our stickers, and people are obsessed with them, and we love seeing them at events. So if you get them, please throw them on bottles or whatever, and show them to me when you see me at the booth.
There you go. Well, I don't know that you threw a sticker in my box, so I may need
Was
to
there
find it
not?
somewhere. Uh,
Well,
there might be. I need to throw a sticker on my Jeep if I ever get my Jeep back. So
yeah. Well, send me. Send me an email, remind me. I'll send you out a pack of stickers. We got a whole bunch of different ones. So
Sounds great, man. Thanks very much. I really appreciate it. You take
yeah, it's great talking to y'all. Appreciate the time from all of you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
All right.
See all of you later, and I'll send those links out to everybody too. Appreciate everybody being here today.